I love Mark Passio. Like, he's just got such
Isn't
brilliant
it?
stuff that he comes up with.
How many people can you sit down and listen to for 7 hours?
I can't.
Seriously?
Nobody ever. I mean, even David Icke's presentation at Wembley. I mean, one of my mates brought round his 4 DVDs. It's like a 10-hour lecture or something like that. You can listen to it, but every hour or so, you just kind of like nod off for a few minutes, and you kind of go to sleep, and then you wake up and you go, oh, okay, reptilians. But Mark Passio, it's like just this attention grabbing, like yes, this intensity, this crescendo builds up. And what he was saying, I think, was about New Age BS and how there is no what they're saying, and trying to indoctrinate people into this new religion where there is no objective truth, where there is no such thing as natural law, where there is no such thing as good or evil. And this was the point that I almost forgot. The elite know all of these lessons, and they know that those lessons give you power, and so it is part of their agenda to ensure that we don't get those lessons, so that none of us have any power to challenge them with.
Yeah, children are being taught how not to think critically, how not to ask questions, just to repeat and memorize answers that are preordained, that are never investigated, and are virtually all wrong.
Yeah.
And it is so simple to teach yourself how to critically think, even if you've had your head stuck up your ass your entire life. That all you need to understand is the basics of the trivium, and once you start applying it, once you start understanding what information is, what its logical sequence is, and what the inevitable conclusion is in that order, once that happens, then nothing can be the same again. It can't be the same. You understand that the reason why the dumbing down in the education system is so advanced is because they're insisting that rhetoric is placed first at all times. So they're giving them the wrong answers, and they're telling them, shut up, just accept it.
That's
Put your hand down.
In fact, I had this realization when I was at university. I only managed to do 2 years of it before I quit saying this entire thing is BS. When you talk to some people who are educated in university about some of these subjects that you and I discuss, subjects which have evidence, that are real, that exist, that are provable, documented, etc., they're in complete denial of it. Or they say that you're crazy, or something of that nature. And a profound realization hit me. They all think that they've been taught critical thinking in university, right?
Yeah.
But the realization was, for me, that university does not teach people to think critically. It teaches people to be critical of people who can still think.
Yes, it does. It does.
And, of course, these graduates go on to become your leaders, and they pass it on. It's like Chinese whispers, except instead of passing along words, you're passing on insanity.
Yes, that's very true.
And the insanity gets so skewed that it's not even recognizable as insanity anymore. It's like it reaches new levels.
It does.
It's something that Alex Jones says all the time on his radio show. You just crack out laughing. The level of it, the level of it. And he's right, It just, I've realized that the difference between good and evil is good characterizes itself by having restraint over itself. Evil characterizes itself by having no restraint over itself. That's why there's no upper limit to tyranny. There's no upper limit to scumbaggery. But there are many limits and examples of what good is. And I think that is what we're supposed to be here on this frickin' plane of existence, this planet. Whatever your perception tells you that you're experiencing right now at this very moment, if you ain't doing something good, then you're either helping evil to succeed or you're helping good to die. right? Which helps the evil to succeed. It's by default. And it is because you restrain yourself from doing good rather than doing good by restraining yourself.
I think that's very well put. It also reminds me of one of my many appearances in court, and I've generally appeared when I'm helping other people in legal matters, including my own family, under a power of attorney that grants me the right to act in their name. And exercise a right of audience. And I was doing this in the High Court in one of the mortgage-related cases that I've been fighting it since 2010. And my family's properties are on the line. They're at great risk of being stolen by the Crown for the second time in my life. And I was in the High Court with a judge who'd he'd let me say everything I wanted to say. He complimented me, with what I perceived as sincerity, saying that what I'd presented was erudite. That he implied that there were obviously several merits within the argument that I put forward, but he said that in this case he was unable to go into those merits because a Court of Appeal judge had refused permission to appeal on paper without a hearing, without going into any of the merits of the case. And he said, therefore, I'm unable to do anything except dismiss this as totally without merit. So I said to him, a system of justice that cannot deliver justice is void ab initio and must be struck down. And then he thanked me for the way I'd conducted myself. And this was in the High Court Chancery Division. To the best of my knowledge, this is unprecedented, but it stands as an example that I effectively declared that the courts of so-called justice on these shores are void because they are putting the interests of the banks above the law and above those of the people. Instead of protecting the people from the tyranny of the banks, they are allowing the banksters to run amok and steal from everybody with impunity. And if that is the case, why do we continue to go into those courts and ask for remedy from the representatives of tyrants? Why do we do it?
I think it's force of habit. You know?
It is.
You know, it's like it's like Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah.
To a degree, you know, we've been psychologically trained and corralled into this narrow vision spectrum of thought, and it's very difficult to escape. It's like a single electron attempting to, shall we say, separate itself from the other electrons in the beam of a laser that is shooting in one direction and one direction only. Okay, one electron decides, you know what, I'm not going to go the same direction as all the other electrons, but he's still getting pushed along by this laser beam, isn't he? And that's the psychological difficulty of what we're dealing with. We have a laser-focused, scientific, psychological castration going on here. Yeah,
there's no doubt. But what about all of the things that everybody who is currently living in the Matrix? What about all of the things that they can do today to help themselves step out and realize exactly what's going on for themselves? They don't need to be told. Stop watching television. Stop listening to any mainstream radio. Stop buying so-called newspapers. Look for your information online. There's enough good information out there. It doesn't take long to realize what is going on. Walk outside your front door and look up in the air. Look at what they're spraying. Look at the evidence on geoengineering and chemtrails and the poisons that they're pumping out into the stratosphere, which again are attacking fertility. They're attacking the earth. They're preventing plants from growing in the normal way. Then you've got the nuclear radiation that is pumping out of Fukushima every single minute of the day into the ocean.
Yeah. Hey, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that conversation Morpheus was having with Neo in the Matrix. And he goes, "What is the Matrix?" He says, "The Matrix is the Matrix is the tyrannical system, right? Yeah. The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room. You can see it when you turn on your television, and you can hear it when you turn on your radio. You feel it when you pay your taxes.
And it's watching everything we do right in this moment.
Yeah, and I saw another great post on Facebook yesterday. It says, "Big Brother is watching you. Give him a good show." And I think I'm doing that, you know. It's the Vinny Eastwood show, you know. I'm glad that the NSA, or as the Mexicans would pronounce it, the NSA, is listening to this listening to us at this very moment. I mean, right now, we're pre-recording this. This is not live, so the listeners cannot listen to this while it's being recorded. But the essay that begins with an N can. And I find that actually quite wonderful because, hey, I've got audience members that I can't even calculate. Isn't that lovely? And I hope that all of you listening to us right now, at this very second, before it's even published, really appreciate the privilege that you have to get a sneak peek at this episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, which is quite fabulous indeed. We're going to break now. We'll be right back in just a few minutes, folks. Don't you go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The final segment here now with Michael of Benicia. And we have had quite the conversation. I'd like to just give you the opportunity now. How has this talk been for you thus far?
It's been extremely enjoyable, even if I am a little bit bleary-eyed. I've been up for over 15 hours now, so...
Sweet mercy.
Doing well.
Okay, well, let's attempt to wrap this up as concisely as we can without cutting it too short, I guess. I wanted to talk about personal journeys and what have you, but I don't think it's actually appropriate, because what I've found is that when you generalize, you come up with a lot of really profound stuff, even if it's incorrect. Like, have you noticed that good stories, even if they're not true, can still be seen as just a really good story? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I used to work in fiction. I used to write fiction, so I understand that, yes, of course.
Of course. What do you think are some of the most important, perhaps, fictional lessons that people really need to wake up to?
Fictional lessons?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. Well, I think they need to learn to empathize with their child by projecting themselves 25 years into the future and imagining what kind of life their child is going to have if they do not start to take action to prevent the tyranny which is running amok from taking total, absolute control of every single aspect of life on Earth. And I think if people imagine themselves sitting in a grey, soulless tower block with thousands upon thousands of other people in a chemical sky, and if they imagine their children have been subjected to such chemical annihilation that they have no possibility of having children of their own, they have no possibility of ever not doing what they're told by the state, they have no freedom to do anything at all that isn't state controlled. And if they think that lesson